New details are emerging of corruption by Joe Biden. I don't know why the mainstream media is not telling you about this, but you can actually calculate out the true cost of Joe Biden's corruption and how much it is costing you personally. I'm going to show you how to do that this week on Wolves in Finance. We know some new details now that we did not know before. Joe Biden was involved with his son Hunter with Burisma in Ukraine. This is a big revelation. Before, Joe Biden explicitly stated, "I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings." Now looking back on this statement, it is a little silly that we all believed this. What was wrong with us? Because fathers speak with their sons all the time about their work. It would be strange if they didn't. So the fact that Hunter Biden was on the board of a Ukrainian oil company when he had no experience is pretty suspicious. Well, we now know that Joe Biden's claim was a lie. He was lying to us. He did speak with Hunter about his foreign business dealings. Last week, Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devon Archer, testified in front of Congress and sat down for an interview with Tucker Carlson. He told us that not only was Joe Biden aware of what his son was doing with Burisma, Joe Biden met with Hunter Biden's business partners, and Joe Biden had conference calls with the executives from Burisma. Devon Archer witnessed conference calls with Joe Biden around 20 times. Wow. That is quite different from Joe Biden's claim that he never spoke to Hunter about his foreign business dealings. Why would he lie to the American people? With all of this new knowledge, it makes Joe Biden's actions with Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin highly suspicious. Joe Biden bragged that he used $1 billion of U.S. aid to Ukraine to get the prosecutor fired. Now, this would have been fine if Joe Biden had no connection to Ukraine and was simply fighting against corruption. But we know now that the Biden family was getting millions of dollars from Burisma, the company that Viktor Shokin was investigating. So it looks like Joe Biden was the person who was corrupt, not Viktor Shokin. In fact, the released FD 1023 form from the FBI told us that a witness claims Joe Biden and his son were personally paid $10 million to take action against Viktor Shokin. That would be bribery. The form says that when the witness asked the head of Burisma, Mykola Zlochevsky, about the threat from Viktor Shokin, he replied, "Don't worry, Hunter will take care of all of those issues through his dad." Not only that, the FD 1023 form explains that audio recordings exist to prove the bribery and that they are being held as an insurance policy by someone in Ukraine. Supporters of Joe Biden will argue that we do not yet know for sure how much he was involved in the corruption. They will try to say that it was Hunter's business and Joe Biden was not involved. But this new testimony from Hunter's business partner shows that Joe Biden was involved. At this point, we're just arguing about how much. But even if you assume it wasn't a bribe, at the very least, Joe Biden was compromised when it comes to Ukraine. Any way you look at it, he is compromised. And we also know that he lied to the American people. Why would he lie if he did not do anything wrong? Given this information, we can now calculate the cost of Joe Biden's corruption. The cost of corruption is typically hard to measure. If someone in government is taking a bribe on the side, how much does that really affect the average person? It turns out, a lot. The cost of corruption is not just the bribe, it is the decisions that come after the bribe. Instead of doing what is best for the people, Corrupt politicians do what is selfish so that they can get more bribes. That is the real cost. I want to emphasize this because a lot of people don't understand this point. Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly received $10 million in bribes from Burisma. The $10 million is not the whole cost. The $10 million was a bribe to make decisions. All the decisions that came after the bribe are the real cost. Most government corruption is hard to calculate, but in the case of Joe Biden, we know exactly how much it was. This whole situation deals with Ukraine, who is currently at war with Russia. Do you realize we have a benchmark example we can compare this against? Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014 under Barack Obama. It is the exact same situation. Under Obama, Russia invaded Crimea in eastern Ukraine. Under Biden, Russia invaded more provinces in eastern Ukraine. Look at the U.S. response in both situations. Under Obama, do you know how much the U.S. spent in defending Ukraine? $0. Do you know how much money has been spent so far under Joe Biden? $113 billion. Well, that is strange. How could the exact same situation go from costing $0 to $113 billion? Does it have anything to do with the fact that Obama was not compromised from Ukraine and Joe Biden was compromised from Ukraine? So that is the cost of corruption. It is the original $10 million bribe plus the $113 billion in bad leadership decisions. And of course, this does not include all the people who have died. We have to ask ourselves, does the $113 billion really reflect the best interest of the American people? Or was it paid to protect Joe Biden from the insurance policy held against him by someone in Ukraine? It wasn't Joe Biden's money he was paying, it was yours. So he doesn't care. He just cares about protecting himself. So how much does this affect you? I hope people realize that this $113 billion is your money. He is giving your money to Ukraine. The population of the U.S. is almost 332 million people. 168 million pay taxes. If we split up the tax bill for the Ukraine war among all taxpayers, that means that each of you paid an extra tax of $672.62. Now you might say, I didn't pay that. I'm here to tell you that yes, you did. You paid it through inflation. You paid it at the gas pump. You paid it through the cost of eggs. You have paid an extra tax of $672.62 to wage war in Ukraine. And for the same exact situation under Obama, you paid nothing. I do not understand why people are not furious about this. But that is not all. We now know that Joe Biden is compromised in the same way when it comes to China. Just look at the leadership decisions that Joe Biden has made that benefited China. Joe Biden has sold off the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, a lot of it directly to China. Joe Biden has allowed China to build a spy base in Cuba 100 miles from the coast of Florida. Joe Biden has refused to ban TikTok. He puts climate restrictions on the U.S. while allowing China to pollute as much as they want. He allows Chinese spy balloons to fly over the U.S. He won't hold China accountable for their role in the pandemic. He has failed to enforce the trade agreement with China. President Trump put a deal in place where China was required to buy enormous amounts of U.S. goods. When Joe Biden took office, China just stopped following the agreement, and Joe Biden did nothing. In 2021, China had only bought 57% of the U.S. exports they had agreed to purchase under the deal. Why didn't we ask for the rest of the money? we just let them get away with it. Why? Again, we now know that Joe Biden is compromised when it comes to China. We now have a letter Joe Biden sent to Devon Archer directly following a lunch with the former Chinese president Hu Jintao. This does not look like he never spoke to his son about his business. It seems like he was very well informed. Just to be clear, it is illegal for a vice president to have a business doing foreign deals, but that is exactly what Hunter Biden was doing. You have to ask the question, just like what was alleged in Ukraine, does someone in China have a tape recording about bribes to Joe Biden that they can use as an insurance policy against him? It certainly looks like Joe Biden has been making a lot of decisions about China that are not in the best interest of the American people. How much are all of these bad decisions costing us? Once again, we can calculate this. And just prepare yourself, because it is a whole lot worse than Ukraine. In the trade deal with President Trump, he set hard targets. China was required to buy a specific amount of U.S. goods. We can see how much China actually paid against their obligation. Keep in mind, there is a lag with this data, so all of this data came out after Trump had already left office. In 2020, China was supposed to pay $227.9 billion, and they only paid $135.2 billion. A similar situation happened in 2021. Once Joe Biden became president, it's like China just started ignoring the agreement, and Joe Biden did nothing to stop them. We are losing roughly $100 billion per year to China. We can forecast this out to the end of Joe Biden's term, and it will cost Americans $529 billion. If Joe Biden is reelected for another 4 years, his corruption will cost the U.S. over $1 trillion. That is the cost of corruption. So let's add the Ukraine corruption of $113 billion to the China corruption of $529 billion. That is $642 billion. This means the impact to each taxpayer is $3,821.43. You are paying this amount for Joe Biden to be corrupt. How are you not outraged about this? I think it is important to note, this is not just a Joe Biden problem. China has done this with a lot of people. China will identify powerful people in the U.S. in multiple industries. China will pay them a lot of money, and then they will implement favorable China policies while screwing over the American people. One of the main reasons wages have stagnated in the U.S. is because all these wealthy people are taking bribes and selling you out. We should also note there is a difference between China and the Chinese Communist Party. It is the Communist Party that is the problem. There are a lot of Chinese people that do not want to live under a tyranny. They want democracy and freedom. It is the communist leaders that are causing the corruption. So how do we fix this? It's really easy. You get rid of all the people doing the corruption. It's very easy to point out all the people who are pro-communist China. We need to replace them with leaders who will put America first. In the case with Joe Biden, that would have saved you $642 billion. But now the question is, who's going to arrest Joe Biden for the corruption? Who arrests the president? This is a conundrum. The Republicans control the House, but the Democrats control the Senate and the president. So even if there is concrete evidence of Joe Biden's corruption, the Republicans cannot impeach him without the Democrats. This is the same thing that happened to President Trump. He was impeached by the Democrat Congress, but not by the Senate. Fast forward to today. the same thing is true. If Republicans impeach Joe Biden in the Congress, it still would not pass the Senate. We are in a stalemate until 2024, and then the people get to vote. I have mentioned before that Roger Stone announced his prediction that Michelle Obama is going to be the next Democrat nominee for president in 2024. People have mixed opinions about Roger Stone. A lot of people think he's crazy. Whatever you think about him, he has been at the center of American politics for a very long time. When he says something like this, he's been speaking to people behind the scenes who would be involved in these decisions. So you would be silly not to take what he is saying under consideration. What I think is happening is that people in the Democrat Party are working behind the scenes to get rid of Joe Biden. They don't want him to run again. We are not done yet uncovering all the evidence of his corruption. As more evidence comes out, he's going to be taken out by his own people. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think that Joe Biden is corrupt? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There are more important videos coming out soon that you don't want to miss. Also, a big thank you to everyone who's been signing up for a monthly membership. I'm a small channel, and it is tough when my videos get demonetized and shadow banned. Your membership for $6 a month helps me so much to keep my channel going. You can go to wolvesandfinance.com to sign up.